I don't really go into a record thinking anything other than trying to write the heaviest, darkest, most evil music that I possibly can. Yeah, and that's always been the mind frame of when I go into writing a song.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Sammy Duet. I play guitar and sing sometimes for the heavy metal band Goatwhore.
And Sammy, how would you describe Goatwhore besides heavy metal band?
Black, death, thrash, evil, satanic, dark, all the fun stuff.
Would you say that you skew to a faster style of metal? Would you say Goatwhore is predominantly faster?
Yes. I would say we kind of split it up 50-50 to faster blast beating kind of stuff to more of the mid-tempo doomier kind of stuff, being that we are from Louisiana, the sludge metal capital of the world, we definitely have that influence in our band. So we're not 100% blasting all the time.
As far as the black metal element in your music, Goatwhore is often categorized or considered a black metal band or a U.S. black metal band. How do you feel about that?
I mean, people will call you whatever they want to call you. It all depends on the listener, what they want to call us, basically. We don't really find ourselves to fit in any certain genre. I mean, I will admit, yes, we are heavily influenced by black metal, but we're also influenced by lots of other things like death metal and doom metal and traditional heavy metal as well. But I think the black metal influence is definitely the heavier, more overshadowing influence over everything else, basically. There's definitely that satanic, evil, dark thing that we try to keep in our music, no matter what style of song or part we're going to go in.
As you mentioned, Goatwhore is from New Orleans or originated from New Orleans.
Yes.
Do you think that had a big part in shaping your sound? The fact that bands from New Orleans tend to not be one thing or another?
Absolutely. That's how we roll around here. There's a lot of bands that kind of like to pigeonhole themselves in a certain sound and just kind of stick to that. But we like a lot of different types of stuff around here. Like I said, the sludge metal scene here is pretty fucking big. So that definitely we have our foot in that coffin, so to speak, pretty deep sometimes.
Now, everyone listening to this podcast will be familiar with Goatwhore. You guys have been around for a long time. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is your 25th anniversary. Is that correct?
Yes, 25 years.
But would you humor me in just telling me a little bit about the origins of the band and what the intentions were when you guys formed?
Well, the band originally started off as something just to do to pass the time while I was playing in a band called Acid Bath at the time when this band was formed. And, we would be doing stuff at Acid Bath, and I always wanted to do something a little bit more extreme. So I hooked up with a like-minded gentleman named by the name of Zach Nolan, which was the original drummer for Goatwhore. And, we just started jamming for fun and recording small demos and just not really taking it too seriously, just having a lot of fun with it. And Acid Bath kind of fell apart at a certain point, and I approached Zach and I was like, do you want to kind of take this a little bit more seriously, being that I have nothing else going on at the time? So that's kind of where this kind of snowballed into what it is.
Do you have a good sense of what kind of music you wanted to make with Goatwhore when you guys formed?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We totally, at the time when we first started, we were very, very heavily influenced by black metal. That was the whole thing. But then it kind of shifted off of the path of being strictly black metal at a certain point. I think maybe about halfway through when we were writing our first record was when we really it wasn't like a conscious decision. It just kind of happened to where it was like, okay, we're writing all these black metal songs, but I have this sick part that's not really a black metal part, but it'll sound great in the song. And that's kind of where it started as far as like venturing, not so much shying away from black metal, but incorporating other influences besides being a strictly black metal band.
Now, at the time that you guys were writing the music for that first album, or even, up to the release of your first two albums, American black metal, US black metal was not really a thing that it's not what it is today, where you can list a half dozen bands and everyone has a good idea of what they sound like. It was still in its emergent phase, where there were a few bands here and there that were doing things, but it wasn't like anyone was gravitating towards a sound. Do you remember what the reaction was, either within the U.S. or outside the U.S., to the kind of music that you guys were making?
Well, I don't think at the time of the first two records, we weren't really, noticed overseas. I think, that has a lot to do with our distribution of our record, is that it wasn't really promoted a whole lot in Europe. So I guess it kind of got overlooked, so to speak. In the US, at the time of that those records came out in the United States, was at the height of the true black metal phase. I'll put it that way, to where if you are not 100% true black metal, then you were false. That whole elitist idea was going on in the United States. And being that we do what we do, we weren't really accepted by a lot of the black metal, true black metal fans at the time, and we didn't care. We were just doing what we felt was right. And if anybody could say whatever they want to say, and that's fine, but there were, as you were saying before, there wasn't a whole lot of black metal bands from the US at the time. There were actually a few, but they were really underground and not really noticed by a whole lot of people. You had bands like Judas Iscariot that was out at the time, and Absu, and who else is a really good one? I can't remember. There was a bunch of them that were out in the US that were considered US black metal, but they were more way underground and not so easily accessible as it is nowadays.
I mean, I always think of Akron as a band that was prominent at the time, and they had a very strange style because it was like deicide except with keyboards. It's not what people think of as US black metal today.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider Akron to be more of like a satanic death metal band more than like black metal, but I mean, they could cross over into black metal because of the whole satanic thing,
Yeah. Was it difficult for you guys to get tours booked and things like that, being that you guys were so different from everyone else?
No, actually, we toured a lot on the first two records, believe it or not. I mean, playing shows wasn't a big deal. I mean, we toured a fucking shitload on those two records. I definitely remember that.
Do you remember a point where there started to be more US black metal bands or more American black metal bands?
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe like in like the early 2000s, maybe 2003, 2004, somewhere around there, where we really started noticing that the more US black metal bands were getting more noticed. Like I was saying, like Absu were getting more noticed. Judas Iscariot was getting more noticed. Leviathan, bands like that stuff, the really underground stuff was becoming really popular.
And when you guys finally started getting more distribution in Europe, what was the reaction like over there?
It was interesting. The first time we went over there, I think, was when we released A Haunting Curse, was our first release on Metal Blade. And, that was the first time that we actually got albums out in Europe. And the reaction was definitely interesting, because the European black metal fans are very passionate about black metal over there. So, if you're not wearing corpse paint or don't sound like Dark Throne or Burzum, they kind of don't really want to pay attention to you. But with perseverance and going over there and proving that we are who we are, we do great out there now. But the first couple of times we went to Europe was very strange. Let's just put it that way.
Not necessarily like bomb threat strange, but maybe like people didn't know what to make of you.
Yeah, just like the fans being like saying things like, I heard you were a black metal band, but I heard you tonight. You sound more like a pink metal band, just, fans being assholes. The whole black metal elitist attitude that was very prevalent back then,
Well, fast forward maybe 10 years from that period of time, there's a lot of hybridization and crossbreeding. I mean, if you hear like the latest Dark Throne albums, that's a crazy mix of like different things, old black metal, old thrash metal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you guys feel, or do you personally feel vindicated that black metal has branched off into so many different things?
I mean, I think it's great. You could only play Transylvanian Hunger so many times. Dark Throne has always been one of those bands that that we're always willing to take chances, whether it would be a bad outcome or a good outcome, and that's why they're one of my favorite bands of all time, because they don't give a shit what anybody thinks, and they never have. And if they want to do a heavy metal record or a punk record, they'll do it. And they'll still call it Dark Throne, and it will still sound like Dark Throne, but it won't be 100% black metal, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
How do songs usually start for you?
I usually find a riff that I like, that I feel is pretty strong, and then I kind of work around that. Sometimes the riff will end up being the first riff in the song. Sometimes the riff will end up being like a verse. It all depends, but it normally starts off with just finding a really strong riff and just working around that.
Do you handle the arrangements on your own, or do you arrange with the rest of the band?
I'll start off with the arrangements on my own, and I'll do a demo at home, and then I'll send it to the rest of the guys in the band, and we'll make adjustments accordingly. If they hear something that I'm not hearing, like maybe, if a certain part would sound better switched out with another part, then they'd be I'm more than happy to hear their ideas, because sometimes when you're so focused on writing a song that you really don't hear what someone else would hear, and that's basically how we work it, is that I'll send the entire arrangement to all the guys, and then we'll make adjustments from there.
And how complete are these demos? Are you also doing programmed drums and things like that?
Yeah.
Bass demos as well?
Yeah, I just put programmed drums over for a rough idea of what the beat that I'm thinking of to go under the riff. And sometimes I'll do a guitar solo in a certain spot if I can feel the spot out and be like, all right, I feel like there's a guitar solo that belongs here. And every once in a while, but not very often, I'll do like some lyrical ideas or vocal phrasing parts, but not very often. I try to concentrate more on the actual music than more of the vocal stuff.
And as far as completing albums go, when do you know that you have enough for a full album?
Well, on this last record, we went in, I believe we had 15 songs completed, and we had to whittle it down to 11. So we didn't know if what we were going to do when we got into the studio. We were just like, here's what's going to happen. We have all these songs, and we're just going to record everything, and whatever comes out the best, that's what we're going to use on the record. Because, sometimes in the studio, depending on, what the vibe is or whatever, sometimes the song doesn't really come across like it was initially thought out to be. And sometimes it takes a couple of times to get it correct, and that's basically what we did, was that we went in and recorded every one of those songs and picked out the best ones that we felt came out the best.
And for the 4 songs that weren't included on the album, what happens to them? Are you saving them for an EP?
No, they'll probably be reworked and put on the next record, or who knows? Maybe they'll be thrown into the trash can. So maybe they'll be dissected and broken up into different songs. I don't know yet. We'll have to see that when we start working on the next record.
But to be clear, you've recorded the songs completely, right? Vocals and everything?
No. We got all the music. We didn't do the vocals. We picked out the best songs that we felt came across musically the best, and then we did the vocals afterwards.
I see. Were there any songs on this album that were holdovers from the last album?
No. Everything from this record was absolutely fresh.
The new album, it's called Angels Hung from the Arches of Heaven, and it was released on the 7th of October by Metal Blade Records. When did you actually start working on this album?
I started work on this record probably around 2018, because we were in the middle. We were taking a break from touring for a month or two, and I got bored, so I just started working on new songs.
And as far as the 15 songs that we were talking about, when did you have them all completed?
Right before we went in the studio, actually, we finished a couple of them up, like a month or two before we actually went into record. But yeah, it was just sporadic spots of inspiration, that sometimes I'd be working on a song for 6 months before I got it completed. And some songs I'd be working on for like 2 weeks and have it finished. You know what I'm saying? So it all depends on what kind of mind frame and how creative you're feeling at the time.
How do you compare this album to your previous ones?
It's definitely darker. It's definitely there's a certain vibe on this record that is missing from all the other ones. And not to say that the other ones are bad or anything like that. It's just, I find that there's a definite sense of dread on this record that is not apparent on our other releases. And it's hard to, you can't really compare records to each other because you kind of look at them as your children, even though one of your child might be uglier than the other child, you still love them the both, you know what I'm saying? That's the way it is. I don't really look at it as an album being better than the other one. I just find them to be different from the other ones,
Which child would you say is your ugliest in the Goatwhore discography?
I would definitely say this new one is the ugliest in a very beautiful way.
Were you looking to do anything different with this album?
We weren't really looking to do anything different per se. We were just kind of following what we felt was right. And there were definitely some ideas that I had never tried before that I experimented with that went right on this record. So it's I don't really go into a record thinking anything other than trying to write the heaviest, darkest, most evil music that I possibly can. Yeah, and that's always been the mind frame of when I go into writing a song.
I mean, given that Goatwhore encompasses so many different things, and even with Acid Bath, Acid Bath was doing a lot of different things within the scope of what it was. Is there anything that you wouldn't do within the realm of Goatwhore, or you wouldn't feel comfortable including as a Goatwhore song?
Probably, yes. Probably wouldn't feel comfortable with getting too technical.
Okay.
As far as being like really, you know, how can I put it? You know what I'm saying? Like these really technical kind of parts. We really try to keep it kind of simple. And that's what we do, and that's what we've always been about. That's what we're always going to be about. Is just trying to, keep it simple and just crushing rather than trying to show off how good we can play musically and how off time we can get or whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's not what we're about.
Right. But in terms of like, you don't think in terms of like fast or slow or having like moody acoustic parts or things like that. You don't have a problem with any of that, right?
No. I mean, listen to our new record. They have all that stuff on it. There's acoustic parts on it. There's a lot of very moody songs on there. There's a lot of very fast songs on there. So, as far as that goes, we're not afraid to venture into any territory as long as it's dark. Barrel
Where did you guys end up going to record this?
We recorded this at a wonderful studio in Bogalusa, Louisiana, called Studio in the Country. And we had no idea that this studio existed in Louisiana. So that was a very nice surprise. Studio's fantastic. It was built, I believe, in like the 60s, but it was built from the ground up for being a recording studio. It's like every other studio that we recorded at in the past was always like a converted building. You know, saying it was like either a warehouse or an abandoned store or something that got converted into a recording studio, where this place was built from the ground up to be a recording studio. So it was fantastic. The place is great, and we found it, and it worked out that we could get in there. So we definitely took that opportunity. And personally for me, I don't want to go anywhere else. I had a fantastic experience in this studio, and plus it's right down the road from where we live, so that's convenient. But we recorded it at that place, and Jared Pritchard engineered the record because Jared Pritchard was our sound engineer for like 10 years. Our live sound engineer. So he knew what we sound. He knew what we sound like probably better than what we sound like, because he's mixed countless shows of Goatwhore live, and he worked on the last record as well, Vengeful Ascension. He engineered that as well. So we got him to engineer the record to make sure that we were capturing what needed to be captured onto the tape, and then, onto the recording process or whatever you had. Then we had Kurt Ballou mix it, which he absolutely knocked it out of the park. I'm so happy with what Kurt came with. It's fantastic, I think it's fantastic anyway.
Did Kurt contribute anything else besides mixing the album?
Yeah, I was sending him demos before we went into the studio to record. I was sending him the demos that I had finished, and he just wanted to know what he was getting into. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't going into a Goatwhore record blind and being like, here's our record, and just be like, okay. He would have a good place to know where to start before he started. So I was sending him demos of the completed songs that I had, and he was like, do you mind if I give you any suggestions on some of the arrangements and stuff like that? And I was like, absolutely. I'm definitely open to a fresh set of ears. So he just gave a couple of, ideas here and there. Nothing, not like these major changes made to the songs, but like small little ideas here and there that just kind of adding a little salt and pepper to the stew, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Do you want to give an example of one of Kurt's suggestions?
Okay, let's start with Death from Above, okay?
Great song. One of the faster songs on the album, right?
Yes. So the intro riff that it starts off with, just the drums and the guitars the drums kind of accenting before it actually kicks into the beat. He had an idea, because I was playing the riff actually the same way as when the beat kicks in for the first part. And he was like, why don't you switch the riff up like to a key or two? That way, when you drop in to the riff with the beat, it goes into the deeper part. It'll sound heavier, and just like stuff like that. No major changes, just stuff, little small ideas like that.
That's great. And was this the first time you worked with Kurt?
Yes, we were trying to work with him on Vengeful Ascension, but apparently the schedules didn't really pan out, so we couldn't work with him. But when we had been wanting to work with him for a long time, but it just never really worked out. And when we got the opportunity to work with him on this record, I was like, yes, solidify this time. We have the opportunity to work with him. Let's grab him while we can.
And as far as the final part of the recording, can you tell me about the gentleman who mastered the album?
Oh, Mr. Ted Jensen. Yes, Ted Jensen is fantastic. He totally knocked it out of the park as well, because I was getting test masters from a lot of different guys because we were unsure of who was going to master the record. And we loved the mix so much of the record that we didn't want to really stray too much from the original mix, but it had to be mastered. So we were trying all these other guys out, and they weren't really capturing what the mix was actually there. Like the way they were mastering it was just kind of changing it a little bit too much, because the mix before it was mastered sounds fucking enormous, and we didn't want to lose that. So we just kept trying a bunch of different people, and then a very good friend of mine referred me to Ted Jensen, and we contacted him, and we were like, "Hey, we have a record here that we really like you to get a test song. If you would like to do a test song for us and see what you can do with this, and then we'll see what happens." And then he was like, "Yeah, I love I love mastering Kirk's mixes. Send me a song and we'll see what happens." So we sent a song and he knocked it out of the park, and we were like, "Yes, this is the guy we need to work with."
For people who aren't familiar with who Ted Jensen is, he's this legendary engineer who's worked with the Eagles, he's worked with Metallica, he's worked with, basically everybody under the sun. What would you say Ted brought to the sound?
He actually took the mix and made it sound even more like it sounded. Like I said before, the initial mixes that we got from the record, we didn't want it to change at all. We wanted it to, because Kirk did such a fantastic job on the mix. So we wanted someone that actually wouldn't change that. Would change it the smallest amount that needed to be changed, rather than going in and trying to EQ it and compress it and all this stuff that the mastering guys do. Ted just did the right thing. He took Kirk's mix and made it more. That's the only way I could really describe it.
I mean, I'm not that familiar with his work. He's one of the few guys who has mastered a death metal album who has a Wikipedia page. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mentioned some of the bands that he's worked with, like the Eagles and Metallica. When you're working with somebody whose body of work is that broad, is there ever a concern that he might not understand your type of music?
Oh, there's always that concern, and that's why we got a test mix from him, because we were going through mastering guys. Like we went through like 6 or 7 mastering guys, and we weren't happy with what they were coming back with. And luckily I was referred to Ted, and Ted gave us the test master, and we were like, yes, he understands where this record needs to be.
That's great. So as we mentioned earlier, this would be the 25th anniversary of Goatwhore. Doesn't sound like you guys are planning on slowing down anytime soon.
No.
Probably going to see you for the 30th anniversary, right?
Yeah, I hope so. 30th, 35th, 40th. We'll try to do this as long as we're physically capable of doing this. At least that's my attitude. I will continue to do this as long as I can physically play these songs. Until my hands stop working, or my arms stop working, or my voice stops working, I will continue to do this.
So let's say past the 50th anniversary, if you decide that you can't play these songs anymore, how would you want Goatwhore to be remembered?
I just want to be remembered as Goatwhore. No real special thing, I just would want people to just remember in general what we created. I don't have this big deep answer to this or anything. It's just I just want people to remember our music, basically.
Well, I mean, given that you're associated so much with the beginning of the U.S. black metal scene, would you object to being remembered as one of the earliest examples of that?
No, I would not be objected to that at all. If that's what people want to define us as, then absolutely. I have no problem with that.
So, Angels Hung from the Arches of Heaven is out now through Metal Blade Records. Sammy, what's the best way for people to order the album? How can they get it?
You can go to www.metalblade.com and order it through there. You can go to indiemerch.com and order it through there as well. If you're European, I think King's Road has all the vinyl and the CDs and the shirts. That's the best way. You could go to our Bandcamp if you would like, which is goatwhore.bandcamp.com. You can get it there as well.
And if people want to follow Goatwhore online and keep up to date with what you guys are doing and keep up to date with the 30th anniversary when that comes up, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to www.goatwhore.net. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. We have all the social media you could possibly wish for.
So I understand that you guys just got off a long tour. Do you have another one coming up?
Yes, we are going to Europe in January and February with Revocation and Alluvial and Creeping Death. So that is, I think it's like a little bit over a month long. So that'll be fine. I think we're doing some regional shows before that in January, possibly a Louisiana show and a show in Mississippi. And I think 3 or 4 shows in Florida. So that's the plans. And as soon as we get back from Europe in January and February, I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of us in the United States and Canada.
And as far as the anniversary goes, did you guys get to do anything special for that? Or do you have anything planned?
Not really. Just another day at the office.
The album is enough?
But yeah, man. I mean, we didn't intentionally release the album on the 25th year. That just kind of happened like that. Time is irrelevant anyway. Who cares?
Is there anything else you want to say?
I'd just like to say thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Sammy.
Thank you for having me, man.